Welcome to our second annual Mega Wellness Summit, where we are transforming lives one aha moment at a time. I'm your host, Nikki Jencen, and thank you so much for tuning in and sharing this event with your friends and family. Today, I have a remarkable guest, Laura Eisenhower. Laura is the great-granddaughter of President Dwight David Eisenhower. She is considered by many to be one of North America's leading researchers on health, exopolitics, alchemy, metaphysics, and ancient history. Hello, Laura. Welcome. How are you?
I'm great, Nikki. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm good. Thank you so much for being a part of this. It's so great to talk with you. I have watched many of your videos on YouTube. Been a part of your Facebook feed, and what you have to say is really mind-blowing. And I said to myself, gosh, I really need you on Mega Wellness Summit because you are a wealth of information, and you're so smart. And one, you are a catalyst for change. And so I applaud you on that, and thank you for spending this next hour or so with me. I'm excited, and with all of us listening.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's really great to be here.
So good. I'm glad. I do have a kind of an opening question for you, and this might sound kind of weird, but I want to know what your life mission is.
My life mission. Wow. I have to say it has to do with empowering people. I mean, there's many layers to all that we are. I mean, there's many different areas of ourselves that we can empower, but what about the missing links? What about the things that have been exiled that we have lost touch with? I mean, that's really where my focus is at, because we're very off balance as a human race, as we see, and there's a lot of programmings and distortions that are fed to us from the time that we're born. And what I want to empower is not the things that we've been fed, but the things that exist deep within us, our connection to God's source, our connection to the divine masculine and feminine, our connection with nature. And when we want to understand things like the word ascension, well, what does that mean? Is it an event that happens outside of us? Well, that's not what I want to empower. I want to empower the truth that, this is an internal shift. This has to do with what's inside of us, which is connected to what's outside of us. But how can we possibly experience something if we're not doing the inner work? And to say that so boldly, I mean, there's enough proof to back that up. I mean, we see that in relationships. If you don't stand up for yourself, if you don't speak your truth, if you're not authentic, if you allow deception to get the best of you and you wear rose-colored glasses or keep your head buried in the sand, how are you possibly able to have an authentic and genuine relationship? And so everything's a relationship, our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with life, the earth, nature, humanity, our friends, our parents. And the quality of our relationships really depends on the quality of our relationship with ourselves. And so, I really am here to empower, what we're made of, what our DNA potential is, what, our ancient history is and our galactic history, so that we can understand how things got to be the way that they are today. And that's the same sort of thing we need to do when we have health issues. What is the root of it? It's not just about masking the symptoms. It's also about deeply understanding, what the roots are, so that we can really heal it and transform it and cure it. And that's how we're going to change the world, is to really dig deep, but to also recognize, frequency and, the power of our voices and, the things that we can change in our daily lives. We can change the world by just being willing to change our lifestyle. And, because it all starts, from the most micro place to ripple out to the macro. So, my mission is that, but the different things that I have to bring in, that I love to bring in, is research. I am a mad researcher. Also my life experience, and the background being in the Eisenhower family, and how my mission, came about since I was a kid, and what my observations have been along the way. On top of, just like I said, a lot of research, a lot of dot connecting, also with the sciences and things like astrology and the more dots I can connect, the better, because it'll create a holistic picture, because there's a common thread in all these different things: mythology, geology, astronomy, astrology, physics, and the way the human body works and the way the earth energies work. So if we can make sense out of it all, then we're not so compartmentalized. So my mission is to empower, to create balance and wholeness, and to unify us all by first addressing what it means to be authentic and true to who we are, which is a prerequisite, I would say.
Wonderful. Wonderful. That was absolutely a fantastic answer. And you mentioned, your family line as being an Eisenhower. And how has that impacted your life?
Well, I can't say I have too much to compare it to, but I sort of do. I mean, because one can just sort of forget and just feel the normalcy of, yeah, I'm here going to, the school systems like everybody else. And there wasn't a lot of attention on being an Eisenhower growing up like there was with my mother, who had Secret Service men following her. She was a teenager while her grandfather was in office. There was no real escaping, being known as an Eisenhower for her. For me, I could keep it pretty quiet. We weren't, also living on trust funds, so it wasn't like, who's that family? I mean, we were very normal. We've all worked very hard to get to where we are, and it's not your typical presidential family in that front. And so the only people that really knew that I was related to Eisenhower were, close friends, partners, people that, would come over to my house or spend, any amount of time with me. I wasn't carrying the name at the time. I was carrying my stepdad's last name. And it's on my mother's side, and she legally changed my name because she's the one who raised me, and it's a part of my name. But, going to these family gatherings, as a child and looking through family albums and seeing things like the Holocaust, which people deny ever happened, but seeing it not from a place where it's staged or, inserted. It's like, this is a really genuine experience. This is family. This is where nobody hides anything. This is where everybody's being themselves. And so I really experienced it as a normal family, but I kept, thinking to myself, all right, the whole world knows who Eisenhower is. I mean, this is a person that, made a mark in history, that was a president, that was also a general. And my curiosity, got so intense, because on a soul level, I felt a very deep connection to him. I felt his presence with me since I was a child. And I'm like, well, there's something else going on here, because I'm certainly not going to be a politician. I'm not moving into a government position. So there's something else here. And I recognize that we are very linked and connected in just being of service to humanity, outside of the constructs of government and politics, that there's a deeper, more spiritual quality there that we're both connected with, that sort of, brings our energies together. I feel like he's a spirit guide, and I don't sit around talking to a lot of spirit guides. I know they're there, but he's, very much there. I mean, even to this day, he taps on people's shoulder and he talks to me through other people. I have my own communications with him as well. I have a lot of discernment too, and it's good to be skeptical, because there's a lot of weird stuff out there too. But you can feel it in your heart. It's a family member, and so it's easy to tell the difference, because this has been a lifelong thing. And so I started to really dig deeper into things in his administration that were never covered, that we don't have in the history books. What are the deeper layers of the military-industrial complex? I would ask myself those questions. And I really delved into, ufology and things about extraterrestrials, because there's a lot of rumors connected to him. And a lot of people might not know about these rumors, but I've done an incredible amount of research, and a lot of my talks shed light on, what I've come to understand. And then I went through something in 2006 where I learned a lot about some of the stuff that goes on in secrecy, and I've brought a lot of information out connected to that. And so I just really feel like my soul mission connected to the divine feminine and masculine and earth energies and Gaia Sophia and the ascension window period that we're in is very connected to being born into this family line and what I've gained from being in this family, connecting with the spirit of Eisenhower, and how much my family, even though I was like a black sheep, has been very open to me and very appreciative of me to be able to talk about things that they might not be able to talk about, or things that they're not comfortable bringing to the surface, or stuff that they might not even know because it was kept from them. And they see me out there and they're like, okay, we don't fully understand it, but the love is the strongest. I mean, we all meet for family reunions. We get together on the holidays. And this is all the grandchildren of Eisenhower, Julie Nixon, who married into the family, who married David Eisenhower, which are my aunt and uncle. And we're closer than can be, all of us. And it's all about love. It's all about being very down to earth and just, helping to raise our families together. And we talk about politics, we talk about the bigger stuff, but the real priority is love and mutual respect and support. So that really tells me a lot about the kind of man Eisenhower was. If I was waking up to some weird control structure where, there's a lot of the games that we're seeing played in some of these other presidential lines, I would be speaking about it, but that's not what I've discovered here.
Well, I think in my own journey, I've learned some interesting ideologies about presidencies, and especially modern day presidents like the Clintons and Obama. And it doesn't look very pretty. It looks very dark. And so was your great-grandfather a part of that? Was he of light or was he of the darkness?
Oh, he was absolutely of the light. I mean, I've questioned a lot because of his associations. I mean, Ida Stover, if people read about his mother, I mean, they were raised on a farm. I mean, his mother was not into war at all, didn't want him to go off to West Point and become a general. But he had a really strong calling. It was really obvious to him from a young age. But, I mean, I don't want to share things that are going to scare people. These three-letter organizations can track and target and have their attention on certain souls that are born with big missions. I've been targeted my whole life because of my mission, and it's taken a lot of strength to counteract a lot of the different things that they try to, steer me into. And we see that just in the world. I mean, like anybody in Russia who went to school for physics, was used to make bombs. Is that what they really wanted? It's like a lot of people's creativity is used by the powers that want to be, or the larger control structures of our world or governments, because they want to use the resource of intelligence that's out there, for their own agendas. And Eisenhower warned us about it with the military-industrial complex speech. He had 8 heart attacks, and he was really crying out, I feel, trying to get a lot of this information out. And a lot of the stuff that gets channeled through, is really about wishing he could have done things differently, wishing, he could have said more, but the limitations and the ramifications were huge. I mean, first of all, they didn't have a huge grip on the whole situation. He put a time capsule in the Gettysburg Farm talking about the things that he came to understand. And in actual fact, he supposedly set up a unit in the Marine Corps that was specifically created to keep an eye on those that are in the shadow government, those that have their hands on advanced technologies that are not using them for the good. And because he was president and had that role as president, all he could do was set up things to keep those guys in check. And he put under legal, he made this legal that if it got to a certain point that things got really bad, that there would be legal disclosure. And so people that are part of that group he set up are now legally disclosing everything that went on in that administration that was kept secret. And he signed it into law. I wish they could have spoken up sooner. I mean, it was like a certain percentage. If it gets this bad, then they're under legal authority. And Captain K, Randy Kramer, you can Google, and he's a part of the special section that Eisenhower created. And so with the warning of the military-industrial complex, and with his great love of the family, and none of us sitting on trust funds, and him teaching real family values and what it means to be a person of integrity, who loved his wife, he was great to women. I've been waiting around for some negative story or to find out that there's something, terrible in there. Yes, he did go to Bohemian Grove, but we're talking about you're a president, so you're dragged to the parties and the gatherings that those in that position are going to be dragged to. But there's compartmentalism. There's a lot of dark stuff going on in different layers of those gatherings and institutions that you're not going to know about or hear about. That's, there's so many well-intentioned people that are being kept in the dark that are being used. I mean, these hidden agendas, a lot of the people think that they're serving humanity. They don't see secrecy as a problem because many do feel that the human race isn't ready. And I think there were periods in history where, yeah, that's probably true if they don't know how to speak about it in a way that's going to serve us. Because they're just as confused. I mean, they're humans being visited, and if they can't make sense out of it, how are they going to be able to share it with the human race without it creating a lot of disturbance? And this is the dangerous part, though. This is the place where we get vulnerable because then other entities jump in and take advantage of that, just like all of us being born with amnesia, that's taken advantage of. If we could all remember our past lives and everything about our abilities, we would be far ahead of the game. But we have to understand, he's a human too, and he was put in a very awkward position. He tried to defeat the Nazis. We had Project Paperclip where the Nazi scientists, were moved into the American government under Truman's authority, but he didn't even know what he was doing because all their names got whitewashed and destroyed. And that's where we have all these hidden projects and all these different infiltrations that happened, that by the time Eisenhower stepped into office, the infection or infiltration was already well underway. And so to try and manage that while being in position of president is very hard. So all he could do was set up this unit, like I said, and there's plenty of information out there now about it. I didn't know about it till last year. He warned us about the military-industrial complex. He wanted to side with the Nordics, if people are understanding these treaties or whatever, just to give a little bit of a glimpse. Most whistleblowers said that he did want to disclose this stuff, and he did want to side with the ones that were on our side. And then there's a movie coming out about Valiant Thor and the beings from Venus, which is based on a true story. In the 1960s, Eisenhower put him on VIP status at the Pentagon, and this was a benevolent being named Valiant Thor from Venus. Believe it or not, the movie actually says based on a true story, and my friend Frank Capobazzo is the producer of it. So once the movie's out, it's undeniable, especially since it says it's based on a true story, and there's books out there about it by Frank Stranges. And I know a lot of people that are connected with this, that are connected with the book, that are connected with Eisenhower, who said that he absolutely wanted to help Valiant Thor, and the whole mission was about helping us to free ourselves of, the pharmaceutical industry, the governments, the corruption, and unfortunately that mission was halted, and it was very upsetting to Eisenhower. And some of the stuff that's coming through is that he's very upset that he didn't just leave the presidency at that moment, But so I was born into this family to kind of pick up the slack and to take things where they couldn't go during his time, and so that's part of why he works with me. And it's better that we were at a much more compromised place back then. There's a lot more information now. People are a lot more ready than ever before for this sort of stuff. But yes, it's unfortunate. It'd be great if we could rewrite certain things. But I know his heart was in the right place because he's still here working with us. He has not moved on. He's not connected to the Illuminati or any dark rituals or any abuses. I've worked with enough psychics, shamans. I've been doing that kind of work my whole life. I went to a clairvoyant institute for 2 years, and I've gotten second opinions, third opinions, fourth opinions, on top of the fact that I, do readings and sessions and can tap in. And not one person has ever said that he is of the dark or that any of the rumors about him that make him appear to be a negative being are true. And these people have nothing, no biasness, they have nothing to lose, from telling the truth about it. And, I have these names, and I have a lot of it documented. And there's some books, too, about his work with Gaia and his healing of the land from war, that are out there. So, yeah. And the way that he treats me, I'm very psychic and sensitive, just we all are to a certain degree. He's had my back, and he's been with me since the beginning. He knows exactly what my mission's about, and there was no way that he was going to let me do this alone without his support, without his guidance. So I love the man, and, some of his quotes are some of the most amazing quotes I've ever read. One of my favorites is, people want peace so bad, governments had better get out of the way and let them have it already.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah. And, I was never really feeling like I needed to defend him. If there's difficult stuff I need to share, if he was a horrible person, I'll share it. I'm here for the truth. I'm not here to defend anybody, and I didn't come in, as a family member as much as a person who's on a mission who chose to incarnate into this family because it was an important one to incarnate into.
Right. It wasn't about you. It's about empowering others with the message that you were born to deliver.
Right.
Yes. And I love that you are so into ancient history and really uncovering who we are and what happened in our past. And it's really cool because we do have that veil of forgetfulness of past lives and where we came from and different dimensions. And I know that this is pretty heavy for this audience to talk about, but it's very cool to discuss ancient history because I think that defines who we are today.
Definitely.
Would you agree?
Yes. And there's a lot that's, distorted, and I know that's hard for people to swallow, but I mean, it's just like any of us, if we're sitting around sharing memories about our childhood with our siblings, we're not necessarily going to see it the same way. I mean, everybody's got their opinions, perceptions, perspectives, and, what they're leaning towards, based on what truth they want to empower, or what side of a war that they want to win. Information can be distorted. And when it's fed to us in culture, and we're coming from, a government or a system or a country that, is sharing this information, it's going to want to make itself look good, of course. And we're, thinking of the identity of being an American, and so a lot of things are geared towards that pride or that, being patriotic in that way. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there are a lot of distortions. And it's really important that we become more of a global family and we look at everybody's side. And we also, start to learn about the things that are capable of changing the stories, because the wars really aren't over. And the only way we're going to stop the war is to raise our vibration beyond duality and move more into a unification. That way we are not polarized. We're not in that sort of conquered and divided mentality where we choose one side or another side. And, we have more compassion. And I know that this relates to, on the most extreme level, like racism. and I don't think that's very prevalent. I think it's definitely a programming, and we're born and taught to become that. A lot of it comes through the way that we perceive history, though, and, oh, your ancestors did this to my ancestors, or look what you did, and you came into our country and took all the jobs. It's like all that needs to be dropped. It's like we're a family, and so history is really important, but we also have to use it as a tool to help us to come together and have mutual respect by, understanding the different perspectives, seeing ourselves in the other's shoes instead of, standing strong in an identity that might just be an identity based in a facade or a projection or a hope. There's a little bit in everyone that has a justifiable thing that they're connected with, but it should never negate somebody else having the right to have that without separating themselves from the rest. It's kind of like, yeah, be strong and be proud, but, also allow somebody else to have that too. And let's all, let true oneness be diversity and harmony. We can all be different and think differently, but let's not turn it into, a scenario where there's enemies or there's separation. That's what religion has done, and this is not what the times are about. But we can certainly respect the differences and, start to have more compassion for the wounds and say, let's put the sword down now. That was then, this is now. And to win the war on consciousness, which is more of what it's about right now, that's what it's going to take. Because it also connects with everybody. I mean, this is what Ascension is about, is unification. We share codes. We activate, DNA. It shifts the grids on the planet. And it affects, the movement of energy into, a more expansive quality. We can't do that if we're in duality and we're in a war mentality.
I agree. And last year when we did Mega Wellness Summit, I covered a lot of negative. And I didn't really realize going into it that it was going to go down this path of negativity, that we talked about GMOs, we talked about what's happening with our food supply and hormones, and, we're doomed. That's how I felt, that it was just a doomed type of feeling. And so, you and I, we can talk about war, we can talk about, what's going to happen in the future, but, that's really not the direction of the conversation, because you always like to take a spin and put it into the positive. So if we were going to go in any sort of direction, what do you see for the future and even for the near future, as seeing our people waking up? Do you see that, or do you see that we're still sleeping for quite a while?
Well, this is the only good part of touching upon the war thing, is because that's what we're learning from history, not to carry it forward, not to keep it going, but to realize that if anything needs to end, it's that. And any war or any battles or any us against them, even if it's the very things that we're complaining about that are taking away from us, we have to pull ourselves back and start to take more responsibility for ourselves. for our lifestyles, for our health, for our choices in relationships. You know, we really need to look at things like the election and ask ourselves, so many people say, well, I'm going to vote for this person because it's the lesser of evils. Well, why are you still voting for an evil? You know, what about starting something from the ground up? You know, why don't we create a new system and gather our skills and talents and, you know, listen to each other's stories and disclose things that they're not sharing with us? I mean, there's a certain point where you have to look at what you're in relationship to and ask yourself, is it betraying you? Is it cheating on you? Is it doing things behind your back? Well, you wouldn't want to be married to that. So I think the hope of the human race is to really look at it and not take it all so, you know, just pretend it's like something going on in your personal life. Would you want the same sort of thing? And if the answer is no, then divorce yourself and start to find true love. Start to find a real, authentic relationship, something that you can count on, something that actually looks out for your best interest, something that really supports you, something that gives you a voice, because the divine feminine exile has a lot to do with the wisdom body being shut down as a feminine. And if we can't hear that wisdom, we're not going to hear it from Hillary Clinton, I'm sorry. You know, we have to see that, you know, that's a part of the bait is, oh, a woman running for president, but are we really looking at what she represents, or are we just excited because she's a woman? You know, and it's like all these surface things to get our attention when we're not looking at the deeper energies going on here. And that's where we're sort of being tricked. So there is a lot of hope for the human race. I don't put a lot of attention on the elections or what's going on in the news. I put a lot of attention on the different manipulative things that are steering that propaganda and those stories that are diverting us and distracting us from what's available. I have nothing but positive energy and feelings about where we're heading, and I have nothing but, you know, hope and confidence in what we're able to achieve. Our human vessel is the most advanced technology. Our consciousness in this human vessel is the most advanced. So we have the opportunity to upgrade our DNA, to expand into higher earth energies, to unify, to really discover our inner wisdom, our inner beauty, and our power, and move mountains and, you know, create alchemy. And, you know, this is a time where we're understanding that spirit holds dominion over matter. But if we're not connecting with spirit, the physicality around us is going to control us. And that's where the whole concept of enslavement or, you know, weather modification or GMOs and, you know, all these things start to just overwhelm. But if we say, you know what, I'm not buying into the programming, because we have to first bite the bait for the rest of it to work. If we remove ourselves from the programming and the stuff that, you know, sucks us into the system and into the TV and into everything that they're feeding us, you know, if we can pull ourselves out of that, our bodies will have the capability to alchemize and transmute the toxins, you know, and the pollutions and the things that are coming from what's being sprayed in the skies. And we'll be able to move into the next level of this experience. And that's always going to be available to us. There's nothing that can take that away. Nothing can take our free will, but it can manipulate us out of it. And part of the manipulation is to get us sucked into what's going on with the world events. And it's hard not to. We're compassionate beings. We want to know what's going on. We want to feel informed. We want to help. So it's good to touch upon it and be aware of it, but then pull your energies back and start to focus on your own creative energy and what you'd like to see happen so that you're the empowered scriptwriter. Because the thing is, once your creative energy gets infected by these stories and you start believing it and you start to immerse yourself in it, or the so-called solutions they put out there, you know, that are coming from outside of you, then you kind of lost yourself, because the solutions are going to come from inside of us. And then our ability to unify together from that place of authenticity. You know, nature is seeded with this ascension. This planetary body is seeded as like a seed that goes into the dirt with the instructions of how to create ascension. And it's built into us. It's in our DNA. Everything out there wants to distract us and take us away from it. If it were enough to just poison our food and have all this stuff compromise us, there wouldn't be any programmings or distortions or controls in the system, in the school systems and in the governments and in religion. You know, it would just be about the toxic stuff that, or the poisons and the chemicals. And it's not. We can transmute all of that, but we have to be programmed to have any of those things actually compromise our physical body. We can cure cancer, no problem. We can get over, you know, all these different things that make us feel like our health is going to decline because of what they're doing. The most important thing is to get our consciousness back, to get our power back, to have a boundary to the stuff that drains us, upsets us, angers us. And it doesn't mean deny your feelings. It means allow them to release, feel what they are, but start to channel them into your divine purpose and what's calling you from the inside so that you can affect change. You know, we either get to be the immune system of this experience, or we're enabling the disease, or we are the disease.
Okay, so somebody might have just thought to themselves, being sprayed? I don't understand. I don't follow that we're being sprayed. So can you elaborate what is going on in our skies? What are they spraying on us?
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, it's really important that people educate themselves about it. I don't necessarily want to scare everybody, you know, without you really, you know, looking into this. The best resource is Dane, D-A-N-E, Wigington, W-I-G-G-I-N-G-T-O-N. He's a friend of mine. I visited his land. He has geoengineering.org. It's all about weather modification and chemtrails. And if anybody has observed the skies, you will see that there is spraying going on. There are trails being left behind. And to call them contrails is really not making much sense, because any aircraft that we fly from place to place does not leave a trail. Most airplanes do not leave huge trails. I mean, these are the sort of trails that last all day and become wispy clouds that a lot of the time, the clouds that you're seeing in the sky aren't actual clouds. They're from these trails that are called chemtrails. And people have tested them, and they have aluminum, barium, strontium, nanoparticles. The whole idea is that we absorb these heavy metals into our body, and the nanoparticles into our body, and it links us into an artificial intelligence system. And that's about as scary as I want to go. I would do the research, have an open mind, have discernment. Don't necessarily hear what I say and let it, you know, freak you out, because my message is absolutely positive. You know, I'm an alchemist, so it's about turning the lead into gold. You know, you hear this stuff, you're going to have a lot of questions. How could they be doing this, and why are they doing this? So stay in those whys and in those questions, because, you know, there might be just as much backing up, like, oh, well, they're doing it for the right reasons. You know, maybe look at that information too. In my research, I have found that that's not necessarily what they're doing. But a lot of people that are a part of those agendas believe that it's to help against global warming or the greenhouse effect, and that they need to spray our skies. But the thing is, you know, even the most well-intentioned people have to look at it like, you know, giving somebody a pharmaceutical that has 100 side effects. And then you have to give medication for the side effects until the person is so drugged up that their body becomes toxic and they're actually really not healing. So even if it was a good idea, I mean, shouldn't we be trusting nature and its ability to activate its own healing instead of playing, you know, the mad scientist and experimenting with things that, you know, could have disastrous results? So there's that part of it. And then if we look deeper and deeper and deeper, chances are there's a dark agenda. But I don't want to say that that's 100% fact, because I think that's for an individual to figure out for themselves and go on their own particular journey to discover that. I have my opinions, and I've done my research, but I don't want to cram that down anybody's throat. So all I can say is, you know, just check in with that stuff. See what your intuition tells you. The best resource I would say is Dane Wigington. And, you know, don't let it outrage you too much. I mean, if you have to process that, process it. But remember how powerful we are. And the only reason they're doing it, if it's for the most negative of reasons, is because they're threatened by our power and what we're able to achieve. And for the most maybe well-intentioned reasons, it's dangerous because it's screwing with nature, and we need to maybe have a voice and say this isn't appropriate. And if there's anything good that you see in it, by all means, send me an email and let me know, because I'm not seeing that. But when I look at it, I let it empower me. I let it remind me of what we're capable of. And I remind myself not to let it control me, not to let it upset me, not to let it take my energy away, because, you know, whether we're in denial of it or we're incredibly angry at it, it still affects us, and we want to find a neutral place. But the only place, or the only way we're going to find neutrality, is by being honest with the processes we need to go through. You know, but not to see fear as a destination or anger as a destination, but an appropriate response to the desecration of life. But as we get to the other side of those emotions, it's also passion, it's also care, it's compassion, it's, you know, the things that we need to get in touch with within ourselves to create change and to create a positive shift. You know, it's like if we saw a child, you know, going down the wrong path, we would be upset, but we would take action, you know, because we care and we love. And we're being tested as a human race. That's part of what this human experience is about. We have to remember we chose the tree of knowledge, the tree of good and evil. We have to deal with these polarities right now, but it doesn't mean it's always going to be this way. But even look in mythology or the symbolism that's out there. Those stories might have been altered, but the symbolism, the tree of life and the tree of good and evil represents our DNA. Right now we're living in a very dumbed down state. And how we wake up is coming into wholeness and fullness and balance. Then nothing can touch us. No dark agenda can get to us. But as long as we're polarized and off balance, just like any human body that's off balance, it's easy to attract parasites and germs and viruses and to get sick. So the focus really needs to be on that, and then you can drop the fear and realize that we're way more powerful than all this stuff that might seem scary.
Absolutely. And I love that. And that was a great answer, because people do have to have their own journey. And just because we say something is going on, we hope that they don't go ahead and say that's crap and put their heads back into the sand. We hope that you go ahead and empower yourself to do research, listen to podcasts, and don't turn on the TV for your information, because a lot of that is just programming. And so it's great to take your power into your own hands and begin, see the truth for yourself. So I love that. I want to go into a slightly different direction and talk about the feminine and masculine. And I hear people say that we're coming into the age of the feminine. So what does this mean?
Well, the feminine, anybody can easily agree. We look at the dollar bill, any amount of money, it all has a man on it. Most religions are male-dominated, and, for whatever reason, it's just been completely way off balance. And it's not about women becoming men, and that's how we create equality. Women going off to war or women playing the role of the man. It's about really understanding, like, these organic roles, but giving it so much room to breathe and to, feel its way into, like, well, what's your truth? What do you want to do? Instead of trying to prove something by saying, hey, I can be a man too, we feel like we need to because we're on the defense. And so this feminism movement has been more about being on the defense and trying to prove ourselves than focusing on illuminating the qualities that have been exiled or forgotten, which is wisdom, our capacity to nurture and be in leadership positions where we can help humanity to thrive by, loving and caring and nurturing and supporting. And men have the feminine within them too. So it's not about women taking over. It's about understanding our male and feminine, our masculine and feminine, and understanding how these two qualities within all of us, no matter what gender we are, can work together and support each other. If we're focused on the programming, we tend to have a male negative ego that's all about domination and control, and the feminine who's about either being a victim or needing to fight hard to be like a man, but it's still kind of missing the mark. Or the man who's trying to shut her up or say, okay, fine, I'll let her, join in, and then treating her like a man, and it's like, all right, we keep missing it. We keep missing it. So what does it really mean? Well, I think, the woman has to take a stand and say, hey, we're not here to take over, but it's about unification. It's about sacred union. It's about the balance, and I think that's the real voice of the feminine right now is, how can we find that balance? It doesn't mean that you shouldn't fight in a war if you want to, but certainly don't feel like you have to prove yourself. I mean, everybody deserves equal rights, but let's step back from that and not be so defensive or so controlling or so dominating, because women can be patriarchal too, and men can have deep, deep sensitivities just like women and have that be more dominant. Let's just step back and, see what we have the most affinity for and what we feel the most passion for, and empower our voice. And as citizens, we need to, be able to listen and be able to hear and be able to consider it and to be fair. And if we could all listen to each other, and if we all could be authentic, then of course natural balance is going to happen. But if we're on the defense, or we're trying to stop something or control something, then we're creating blocks, or we're creating excesses and deficiencies. And we keep missing the mark. We keep trying to solve something with a new problem. So, the feminine also has to do with the earth. It has to do with the elements. It has to do with birthing and regeneration and creativity. But that's within the male too. So, it's also about light and dark working together, and working with the two. The dark to me is like the soil. It's the womb. and the light is like the seeds that get planted in the soil and create new life. The masculine to me is like the security guard to the temple, and the feminine, who's very vulnerable and very psychic and sensitive, is in that temple, and the man comes in and supports the feminine, but also protects it. But it doesn't mean that the man is not carrying the feminine energy or vice versa. It means that they're in a dance and they work together within us, and whatever gender we're in it's going to have its biological leanings, like women are going to feel maybe like making babies or being nurturers more than maybe men, but that's, it depends on their soul energy. I mean, you can have a male that has that kind of energy, that wants to be, in a mother role. It's like, there's a lot of inconsistency. So, we got to let people, express who they are and what they are. Now, yes, there's biological limitations. A male body can't give birth to a baby, but it can still, be like a mother. You get my point. And then, a male body, can work out and probably, build a little bit more muscle strength than maybe the feminine body. So yes, there's differences, but the equality comes in our consciousness and in, what it means to have a voice, what it means to have a say, what it means to have input. And then, understanding like the differences. Yeah, a flower is different than a tree. We can have some common sense here and look at the biological differences without having it bleed over into these other areas, because we are, needing to unify on a consciousness level, but to also understand what roles, we have based on what we've biologically been given, but to also realize the amount of wiggle room we have within those bodies.
And I agree with you on all of that. And I do, what you just said was a big aha moment for me, as that we have really tried to step into being in the man's role, where we wanted and demanded equality. But what that meant and what we saw was that we just ended up being in their shoes. Like we're now going off to war, and we are now in male-dominated positions. And that's not what this is about, right? This is about really coming in and being what the feminine presence was created to be.
Yes. Or else we're just keeping the programming alive and we're saying, okay, we'll jump right into that, male dominant energy. And, so much of it is well-intentioned. You think of anybody going off to war. They don't know the deeper game being played, and they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart often. And it's what they've been taught. And so I think that always outshines everything, that no matter how duped or programmed you are, if your heart's in the right place, that's going to count for a lot. So we might worry about, well, how am I going to wake up my brother or my father or my cousin or my sister? I'm starting to get it, but what about them? Well, I think the most important thing is to recognize the heart and the heart intention. And as long as, people care about their families and care about love and, and if they resist, this sort of information, you've at least planted a seed. And the information's out there and you can just say, hey, just Google around. You might, learn something. And but I think it all comes down to staying in a vibration of love and support, because that'll keep the heart open enough to have an open mind when an open mind is needed, instead of having these relationships ruined because, people find that their friends and families aren't waking up, and it creates more division, because then, we're getting stuck in the game again, where we're in duality, like they get it and they don't, or it's us against them. We have to just really take the initiative here and find those inner qualities of the divine masculine and feminine, where we do feel that maternal or paternal instinct, or we do feel the essence of the inner child, the magical child, where we know what it means to be in our divine innocence, but also what it means to care for those that are still growing up and still learning about difficult things, and to have that level of compassion. Those are where the qualities are at, by stepping into that inner work and getting in touch with ourselves, instead of always answering to what the outer is telling us to do. Like feminine energies need to fight for their rights, and, the male needs to, it's like, okay, that's great and all, and it makes people feel like we're making progress, but the only progress we're really going to make is if we step back and we're very radically true to ourselves, and we function from the inside out rather than the outside in. Because we can question what's coming from the outside in when we're truly in our discernment and in our intuition, and we can pick and choose what resonates. But if we're looking from the outside in, then we're doing what we think we should do because it sounds good. And that's going to get us like lost in traps, and it's too random, where we're picking and choosing, but it's not always going to be serving us. So that's what I have to say about the divine feminine returning is return to yourself, return to your heart, return to your intuition. And as the divine masculine energy, hold space for that, protect that, honor that, you know, and create boundaries so that nothing else can get in. And then we're really in a powerful, beautiful relationship with ourselves. And then when somebody presents something, it'll be easier to say yes or no from our truth instead of, you know, what we feel manipulated into or what we feel is the kinder, you know, better thing to do. And sometimes it isn't.
Yeah, so we do create these dualities, and I love that. I love your answer because it's not about us going against each other all the time. You see it in marriages and friendships and, you know, women against women and, you know, even the idea of New Age people going, well, they haven't woken up yet, which puts you at on a pedestal and then dumbed down, which it isn't about that. It's about you holding a space of love and sharing your heart with others and not putting people down. So I love that. And that's a great way to define this age of the feminine. Thank you. I appreciate that. That really clears that up for me.
Oh, good. And it's a hard one. I mean, that's why it's great to talk about it because it's just like, yes, I mean, and we forget that, you know, I mean, look at how we're raised, you know, just in schools. It's like there's these cliques and there's this, I mean, everything is, there's nothing wrong with, you know, the birds of the feather flock together and finding your soul family and your close friends. But, you know, when everybody's looking over at that other group and not allowing the love and understanding, then it becomes an ego thing. It becomes a label. It becomes an identity that is not considering, you know, that we can all be diverse but be in harmony and find our own uniqueness and expression without having, you know, to lose that. But certainly, like, we need to hold that, you know, respect. And, you know, when people look at others as asleep or look at the dark agendas and create this us against them, they're not taking responsibility for their own negative ego, because there's only dark agendas if we're running our negative ego. If we're clearing it and purifying it, that whole world doesn't exist. You know, it might exist for other people that are empowering it and enabling it, but once we free ourselves, it has nothing to do with our timeline. And the thing is, if we understand that there's love and connection everywhere, whether it's with the customer service person at the bank or a person that you're standing near at the grocery store, if you feel a resonance and you can have a great conversation, do it. Not because they look like they're not awake or they look like they're from some religion. It's like the only way we're going to knock down these barriers is to allow the resonance to speak for itself, because that's the most powerful part of who we all are. The rest of it is just, we're just trying to be human and figure it out. I mean, it's hard not to attach yourself to something because, you know, we're born into physical bodies, and so it gives us a grounding, but that grounding shouldn't create a barrier, you know, and it's about dropping the barrier but still having boundaries, you know, to protect your energy field, but without, you know, pushing people away and being in your ego about it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. And, you know, just a personal story with me, when, you know, just coming out of this awakening for me and really learning about all the things that I know today, especially about food, because I'm a nutritionist. And so what happened was I created all these conflicts in my life because I was telling people how they should eat. And people, like, stopped being friends with me because they didn't want to be told how to eat. They didn't want to be told that the vaccine that they're giving to their child was bad. And so what happened is that I look like the bad guy, but I'm just trying to deliver the truth to you. But it wasn't. It's not about that. So anybody listening on this call who has had relationships destroyed because of their belief that theirs is better than the other, that can come down now. That no longer has to be the conflict in your life, and that we just approach it with love. And what do we say, though? You know, Laura, what do we say to people that we see this happening to others? Like, you know, you see people eating terrible, or, you know, how do you approach that? How do you approach that with love?
And that's such an important thing to bring up, because I know how that feels. It's a really tough thing. I mean, you see people that you love, and it's like, wow. I mean, I think you have to kind of, say stuff, and it is, the approach. I mean, I think we learn this in relationship too. You're living with somebody, and they might have some habit or some pattern, or they might trigger you or say something or bring up exes to, everybody's got their comfort zone with what they can and cannot handle. And so I think it's a little bit, connected to playing around with the energies and knowing that everybody is a little bit different, and to be a bit of a chameleon, just be adaptable to the energy that is in front of you when you're dealing with that person. I know that I talk to my kids differently than I'll talk to my parents. I know I talk to my friends differently than I talk to maybe a crowd of people. And, I think it's just, really offering the alternatives and saying, wow, if you really like that, you should, try this. It's got whole ingredients and it's really good. And I'm sure you've done it this way. So this isn't really directed at you. It's just, bridging into that energy. And I know that there's always going to be times where it just doesn't work, period, because you're dealing with a very defensive or difficult person, and not to take that upon yourself or have it make you feel bad is important. I realized, Thanksgiving with family, there's certain things if we bring up, it's going to turn not so pretty, So we've decided we're not going to talk about conspiracy stuff when we all get together, because we're going to ruin Thanksgiving or our holidays, because there's just no easy way to talk about it without everybody getting upset. And so also, the food thing and GMOs, and when I see somebody drinking from tap water, I'm like, excuse me, I allow my passion and reaction to just sort of mellow out, and I kind of like share it like I'm sharing like, something very casual, like a beautiful flower I saw. I'm just like, oh, hey, just in a way that doesn't amp up the energy, because I used to do that. I'd get intense, and then they'd get intense. And so I just sort of like let everything stay calm and chill, and I just look at it like I'm, when you blow a dandelion and the seeds, I just gently blow, and it's like, here's some thoughts, here's some seeds that I'm going to plant, and then hopefully their eyes will locate things that back up the things that I'm saying, and they'll do more research on their own. It doesn't all have to come from me, but if I plant a seed, if I throw them a little bit of that resource, they're naturally going to gravitate towards more of that after they're with me. It's good to, just leave paperwork, it's good to send links. I mean, and I know you've probably done all this, of course, but it's really about, the tone of voice and the approach, because I know that one person can say one thing to me, and there's 3 different ways they can say it. And there's only one way where I'm going to really have an open mind and heart. But if they say it with a tone, if they say it with intensity, it's going to rile me up, especially if it's something I have to look at that they want me to look at. Then I'm coming from a place of, maybe relationship dynamics that aren't about, food or this or that, but maybe about, just relationship dynamics that have to do with putting your energy with somebody. So, I think it all comes down to that. And then to notice, are you pushing their buttons? If you're starting to push their buttons, to back off a little bit, take a deep breath, and just say, okay, I don't want to, trigger you or anything, but is it okay if I send you something? Because I just know that it could change the quality of your life for the better, because it's changed mine. And to really just be relatable, about maybe your journey and story. Like when I get up and I talk to people, and I don't just share the information, but I talk about my struggles and the things that I've been able to break free of, and the addictions that I've dropped, and how I've changed my lifestyle. People are a lot more open to me than if I just say, you shouldn't do this, or this is, really important, because then they look at me like, wow, have you gotten it this whole time and we're just idiots? It's like, no, I've gone through the underworld and all these different layers, and, and then it warms people up. I look at it almost like giving a massage where, you warm up the muscles before you go into deep tissue, and, it's all about the approach. And then when that person's warmed up, then they can take on a lot more.
That's great. That's great. My approach has been, I take a deep breath. So if your tap water example, I take a deep breath, and I wait now, because before I would have reacted and be like, did you know that there is X, Y, Z, A, B, and C in the water, and that's going, straight into your bloodstream right now. And so it's, or, the mention of fluoride, and then that goes into a downward spiral. But now what I do is I take a deep breath, and I wait to see if I'm guided to share, a story about tap water, or I was just reading an article about tap water. If I get a signal of no, don't say anything, because it will be rejected, and that their timing of learning that lesson is coming. I hold off and I don't say anything anymore. That's only because of years of experience now of really having backlash in my life. So that's how I approach it now, and so that could be a lesson to everybody who's dealing with that. Is, approach it with love, as you said, and handling it with care and thoughtfulness. Yeah. So thank you so much. I want to let everybody know that you are offering something that is so unbelievable. First, you have a giveaway that is 21 days to change. And can you tell us a little bit about that, what they're going to be receiving?
Yeah, 21 days to change, we like to call it a playbook, and it really helps one to verbalize through writing really what your intentions are and the things that you'd like to change in your life. And 21 days is a way to have a certain amount of time pass in order for the harvest to kind of happen. We need consistency when we have dreams and visions, and supposedly 21 days is the power number for, being consistent enough with this playbook to actually see things start to really happen. So it's a fun exercise, and a lot of people have tried it, and it's worked wonders. I've done it myself and have made huge leaps in my life, and it's great. So
fantastic. And I'll get everybody the link to that. So it will be emailed out, and everybody will just have a clickable link to easy access. So you have another amazing offer to our listeners, and I just want to say thank you so much for doing this. This is very kind of you. I know that your sessions range in, about $200 an hour, and you have given our listeners the opportunity to say pick how many minutes you would like at $1 per hour.
Yes, to do $1 a minute. This gives you a chance to just, decide, what works with your budget and how much time you feel you need. It can be anywhere from 15 minutes to 2 hours even, but every minute is $1. And so to have a $60 hour reading is definitely a great deal. 30 minutes for $30, is a great deal, because I have a sliding scale on my website, but this is definitely quite a bit lower. And so it's on offer for a week. And the type of sessions I do are tarot and astrology and clairvoyant readings. I like to bring all of the tools together because it really reinforces things and grounds things. It's like, wow, the clairvoyance is saying this, the astrology is saying, like when all three are in agreement, it really packs a punch, versus just doing, one or the other. And I can do all three in a very short amount of time. I can pick one that a person resonates with most and just stick with that. And I look at, foreign energy in your space and things that need to be cleared, what your soul purpose is, what your deeper agreements are, and, really just to help you to become more empowered and acquainted with, what matters most to you in this lifetime, so that everything else isn't competing for your attention and you can really hear yourself.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And how do people contact you for a session?
You can email me at Laura, B as in boy, E as in elephant, the number 4 at gmail.com. You can also go to my website, cosmicgaiasophia.com. You'll see my contact information, and under the readings link is all the information about the type of sessions I do, but just remember, of course, the price is different with this deal.
Okay. Fantastic. And so I will have our viewers just go ahead and email you. I'll have a link already set to go with a special offer saying, yes, I'm ready to go. Give me 60 minutes for $60, and I'll have that link ready to go for them, so all they have to do is just contact you directly. And I'll have links to your Facebook page and to your website, and so they can contact you easily for questions.
Excellent. And I will be sending invoices since those amounts aren't on my website. I'll send, invoices. So if anybody's, wondering, well, how do I make the payment? I'll send you an invoice. It'll be very straightforward and easy.
Perfect. I love easy. Thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate this hour of power. I can't thank you enough for being a part of Mega Wellness Summit and changing lives and creating more aha moments in this world. I really appreciate it deeply.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I've just loved the questions and just being able to share with you. And thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you.